Good evening and thank you for watching. I'm Paul Dudley filling in for Kristen Pierce. We begin tonight with a developing story out of Metairie. Two people were rushed to the hospital this afternoon after the car they were in fell from atop a parking garage. It happened near the 3200 block of 26th Street. That's just off of Causeway Boulevard. The Jefferson Parish Fire Chief said a car backed out of a parking garage about 2:30 this afternoon and fell from the second floor of the garage. The car landed upside down on the street, partially falling on a parked mobile camper. The fire chief says two people inside the car that fell were rushed to University Medical Center. Their conditions are not known at this time. Slidell police say tips from the public led them to a person of interest that they think is responsible for the armed robbery of a 92-year-old World War II veteran. The crime itself happened Thursday near the 900 block of Gause Boulevard West. Police say the suspect, shown here, broke into the victim's apartment and took his money, his medication, and his car keys. The suspect then took off in the victim's vehicle. Turns out the man, whose name has not been released yet, was already in custody on non-related charges. Police were able to find the victim's car as well. Turning to the weather now, it's been a gray and gloomy day across the area, and it's getting chilly out there again. Let's get a first check of your weekend forecast from meteorologist Alexandra Cranford.
Just a little bit.
All right, thanks, Alexandra. We'll check back with you shortly. Meantime, for the first time in 15 years, the Tulane Green Wave has won a bowl game. They beat UL Lafayette in Orlando. Sports director Doug Mouton joining us now with more. What a game, Doug.
Yeah, it was fun to watch, and Paul wasn't a fan. Paul.
All right, thanks, Doug. Good stuff. Well, as we count down the days to Christmas, you may have heard Santa travels by sleigh on Christmas, but today he made his way through New Orleans on a steam train. The Louisiana Steam Train Association helped give him a ride through town as they welcomed friends aboard Santa's North Pole steam train. It's also known as the historic Southern Pacific Steam Locomotive number 745. It made its way from the fly at Audubon Park to Mardi Gras World, where passengers were welcomed to a Christmas party. The train then made its way to the Moonwalk and then back to Audubon Park. Very cool stuff. And Christmas was also on the minds of students at St. Michael's Special School today. Now, those Irish dancers represented the Irish Channel in the St. Michael's Christmas Parade, which, besides celebrating the holiday, also celebrated the city's tricentennial. Other students danced and performed to songs such as Uptown Girl, the theme song to the show Treme, and songs celebrating the city's neighborhoods. There were also lots of skits out there and scenes cheering on the Saints and performing from the school's well-known bell choir. St. Michael's educates students with special educational needs from age 6 all the way through adulthood. Very good stuff. Well, coming up, a new report out from a local university is claiming food insecurity is a very real problem in our state. After the break, we break down the report to find out what can be done to combat the issue. A new report out this week is shedding new light on the realities of hunger and food deserts in Louisiana. Joining us now to discuss this study issued by Loyola University New Orleans Jesuit Social Research Institute is the executive director, Father Fred Kammer. How you doing, Fred?
Good, Paul. Thank you for being here, for having me.
Yeah, so let's learn a little bit about this study because, you know, when you think of Louisiana, everybody thinks great food, right? But here we are struggling with food insecurity, and that's surprising, I think,
and that's
to a lot
why
of
we
people.
named it Hunger at the Banquet.
Yeah.
Because people in Louisiana have wonderful food customs, and we talk about that in the report. But the way the Department of Agriculture and the Census Bureau measure what they call food insecurity is three things. People who regularly run out of food, or who had a whole day in which they did not eat, or when surveyed said they didn't know where their next meal was coming from. On that standard, Louisiana is the second worst.
The second worst?
In the country.
Oh my gosh. Who is number one? Do you know offhand?
I don't know who's number
one
offhand. My guess is it's probably Mississippi. We seem to rival one another for a lot of these social indicators. There's some other interesting things, though, that New Orleans, metropolitan New Orleans, and Baton Rouge are in the 10 most food insecure cities in the country, or metropolitan areas in the country. So it's also our cities as well. But another interesting fact for me as I was reading this, the report was done by Dr. Kathleen Fitzgerald, who's a former Loyola professor now at the University of North Carolina, who's done some work for us in the past. It really surprised me, the state of a lot of things in the report and the state of our cities. But our rural areas are worse than the cities.
That's what I was reading, because it seems like maybe they don't have the proximity to have a grocery store or even a decently priced healthy food restaurant nearby in some of these rural areas. And you see that when you travel in some of these areas in Louisiana.
And the worst parish in terms of the food insecurity is East Carroll, which is up in the far northeast corner of the state, right along the Mississippi River, and it's 34% food insecurity there. But 46 of our 64 parishes in the state report high rates of food insecurity. And it's tied to this other piece of the report, which is what they now call food deserts, which is people who are, there are a couple of different measures for
Yeah.
The traditional measure was if you live in a city and there's not a grocery store within 1 mile walking or 10 miles driving, that was considered to be a food desert. But that's been challenged now, so we put into the report a series of maps with the different standards that people talk about, but there are enormous parts of our state that are what we call food deserts.
And the walking is the interesting thing here because, you know, a lot of people think, how do you not have access to a grocery store, you know? But a lot of people don't have access to a car, and when they don't have access to the car, then maybe making that 3-4 mile trip to the grocery store is almost impossible.
Yeah, it is, and that's one of the other things is that not having access to an automobile is the greatest barrier to getting fresh food and good food. And the other thing you say is even the 1 mile standard is challenged by some people who say, well, what if you're an old person or you're pregnant or you're carrying a couple of bags of groceries, how are you going to walk that mile?
And Father Cameron, we've got about a minute left here. So do we know how we're going to combat this problem? Is there more information about how we're going to fight this issue of food insecurity in Louisiana?
Well, there are 3 major federal programs. One is SNAP, the old food stamp program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. The second is Women in Infant Care and the School Lunch Program. But then, on the other hand, in the voluntary sector are things like food banks. Second Harvest is one of the great examples in our state. Mobile markets, Sankofa mobile markets here in New Orleans, and gardens. And so like a number of our kids are getting lessons now on how to plant gardens in their schoolyards and things like that. It's got to be an array of those things. Plus, states and localities have got to figure out how to help grocers financially exist in these poor neighborhoods.
Absolutely. Well, still a lot more to come on this. We'll check back with you at some point, and we'll have to get more details about this. Thank you so much, Father Fred Kammer. And you can see the complete study. It is available online. Just visit www.loyno.edu/JSRI. We will also post the link at our website. That's WWLTV.com. And coming up, Alexandra is up next with your weekend forecast, including how cold it'll get tonight. Stay with us.